right, so picture this, listeners. You're finally ready to try this whole meditation thing, right?
Right.
You're sitting there, maybe even lit some candles, got the comfy pants on,
Yeah.
trying to find that, like, inner peace everyone's always talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But then your brain's like, nope, not today. It's like a kid hopped up on sugar, bouncing off the walls of your skull.
It's definitely a common misconception that meditation is just about emptying your mind,
Yeah.
achieving some blissful silence.
Oh, tell me about it.
But what if I told you it's not about silencing the mind, really? It's more about, like, giving it something positive to actually focus on.
Okay, so less about shushing the thoughts and more about changing the channel to something better.
Exactly. That's where sound immersion comes into play. So instead of chasing that elusive silence, we're diving into, well, sound to reach a deeper, more effective meditation.
Huh. See, that actually makes a lot of sense. Sometimes when I'm stressed, just putting on some music helps a ton.
Absolutely. Music, when you think about it, is just organized sound. And the soundimmersion.pdf, it talks about this, how we can tap into that power of sound to kind of guide ourselves inward. It's a practice that's been around forever, but now it's got modern science backing it up, this idea that certain sounds can help us tune out the noise, both literally and figuratively.
So we're talking less about, like, nature sounds or those whale songs and more about specific, I don't know, intentional sounds.
You got it. And one of the big ones in this whole world of sound immersion is the mantra.
Okay, before we go any further, I gotta know, can we demystify this word mantra a little? Because some people hear that and they think, I don't know, chanting on a mountaintop or something.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be mystical. Think of it this way. The word itself, mantra, it comes from man, meaning mind, and tras, which means tool. So really, it's a tool for the mind.
Okay, I like that. A tool for the mind.
Yeah.
So it's not some mystical chant, but more like a, I don't know, a technique to steer our thoughts in the right direction.
Yeah. And it works because our brains are constantly changing, adapting based on what we experience, right?
Right.
Every sound, every thought, it creates a pathway in your brain. And mantras, especially when you repeat them, they strengthen the specific pathways linked to things like focus, clarity, even positive emotions. So it's like you're creating this mental groove for your thoughts to fall into.
So it's like when you're learning a song, right?
Yeah.
You repeat it, and it just starts to flow more naturally.
Exactly. By repeating, engaging with that specific sound, that mantra, we're kind of rewiring our brains to be calmer, less reactive, more in the moment.
This is fascinating. Okay, but hold on. If it's about giving the mind something to focus on, why not just use the breath?
Yeah.
Like in, traditional meditation.
That's a great point. Now, focusing on your breath, that's a fantastic starting point for a lot of folks.
Yeah.
But sometimes our thoughts, they're just too loud, too insistent,
Oh, yeah.
They need something stronger than just the breath to really settle down. It's like sometimes you need a strong cup of coffee to wake up, not just a glass of water,
I like that analogy. So the mantra is like a strong cup of coffee for the mind, cutting through the noise.
Precisely. It gives the mind that clear, steady anchor, especially when you're dealing with those persistent negative thought patterns, like a life raft in a sea of overthinking.
Okay, I'm with you on that one. But how do we know this whole chanting thing isn't some new fad? Has it really been around that long?
Oh, absolutely. This Why Chant, according to grandmasterz.pdf, it tells the story of this Buddhist teacher, Grandmaster Z, from way back in 6th century China. And he was a huge advocate for chanting.
Yeah, and he had that great analogy, right? Comparing a busy mind to carrying something heavy. Like, you'd ask for help if you were struggling with a heavy load, so why not do the same for your mind?
Exactly. He saw chanting as, like, calling for support, a way to lighten that mental load. And it's amazing how this ancient idea lines up perfectly with what we're now discovering through neuroscience.
So we're starting to see how this ancient practice, this chanting, actually has the potential to make a real difference in our mental state.
Right.
But, okay, how does it work on a physical level? Is there something inherently powerful about sound itself?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Okay, so this soundimmersion.pdf reminds us that sound, it's not just something we hear, it's energy, it's vibration. And our bodies, being mostly water, are super receptive to that.
Like when you drop something in water and those ripples spread out. So these sound vibrations are creating ripples throughout our whole system.
Yes. And those ripples, they directly affect our nervous system. Think about it. You hear a loud noise, your body reacts instantly, right? Heart rate goes up, muscles tense. That's a physiological response.
Yeah, but how does that work with chanting? Which is obviously way more calming than, say, a car alarm.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. That rhythmic, often melodic quality of chanting, specifically, it helps to regulate your nervous system. So heart rate slows down, breathing calms, your brainwave patterns shift to a more relaxed, focused state. It's not just the sound, it's how that sound interacts with your physiology.
Wow. So it's like our entire being is engaged in this, not just our ears.
Exactly. And the research on this is just exploding. There's this BBC Real documentary actually mentioned in Why Do We Mix Mantra Chanting and Silent Meditation.pdf. It's called Mantra Meditation, the ancient practice to heal our minds. And it really dives into this whole area. It's like ancient wisdom was onto something.
It's like we're rediscovering the power of something humans have instinctively known for ages. Okay, so I get the science, but I'm still a little unclear on the how here. How do chanting and silent meditation actually fit together? They seem like opposites.
That's where it gets even cooler. You don't have to choose one or the other. This source, Why Do We Mix Mantra Chanting and Silent Meditation.pdf, it makes the case that they actually complement each other perfectly, like yin and yang, right? Seemingly opposite, but they create this awesome balance.
Okay, so how does that play out when you're meditating? Do you chant for a bit, then go silent? What's the deal?
It can be that simple. It's like this. Chanting is the active part, the doing. You're consciously focusing on the mantra.
Right.
And that focus helps to settle the mental chatter, like you're clearing space for the silence to come in.
So the chanting is almost like prepping your mind for silent meditation.
Yeah, exactly. And then when that stillness arises, that's where the real magic of the mantra can take hold.
Love that. So it's not just about silence for silence's sake. We're using sound to actually make that silence richer, deeper.
You got it. Recognizing the power of both being and doing in meditation. And by bringing chanting and silence together, you create this synergy that can lead to some really deep insights and a more profound sense of peace.
Wow, this is really making me rethink my whole approach to meditation. It's not about forcing silence. It's about using sound as a way to get there.
Exactly. And speaking of sound, I think it's time we talk about a specific mantra that usually gets people curious.
You mean Namu Myoho Yeskyo?
That's the one.
Yeah, I was really interested in that one when I was reading through everything, especially because it's considered non-deified, right? What does that even mean when we're talking about mantras?
Good question. So some mantras are about calling upon certain deities or outside forces, right?
Right.
But Namu Myoho Renge Kyo is more about connecting with a power that's already within you. This inner potential that's often called your Buddha nature.
Buddha nature. Okay, see, now that's something I need a little help understanding. It sounds a little, I don't know, intimidating. Like, do I need to be some kind of Zen master to tap into that?
Not at all. It's not about religion or anything like that. Think of Buddha nature as this wellspring of wisdom and compassion, this courage that exists within all of us. It's a human potential, not something reserved for, monks on a mountain.
Okay, so it's like we all have this inner strength, this wisdom, just waiting to be uncovered.
Exactly. And chanting Namu Myoho Renge Kyo gives us a way to actually access and nurture that potential. That source we mentioned, Why Do We Mix Mantra Chanting and Silent Meditation.pdf? It breaks down the meaning really well.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much depth there was to each syllable, but I think our listeners would appreciate a bit of a summary.
For sure. So, Namu, you can think of it as a deep commitment to a reliance on this idea of cause and effect. It's about realizing that your actions have consequences and that you have the power to create positive change.
So it's about taking responsibility, not just blaming everything else.
Exactly. And then Myoho Renge Kyo, those words, they get at the essence of the universe, the interconnectedness of everything, and how life is constantly changing, always in flux.
And that's where the lotus imagery comes in, right? How even in the muddiest water, something beautiful can still grow.
Exactly. It's a powerful reminder that no matter what challenges we face, we all have this inherent ability to overcome them and reach our full potential.
That's such a powerful image. So chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, it's almost like we're aligning ourselves with that potential, planting those seeds of positivity within.
Beautifully put. It's about connecting with this life-affirming philosophy, not just repeating some empty phrase.
I love it. Okay, so for our listeners who are feeling inspired to try chanting Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, are there any, techniques or pronunciations they should know?
The great thing about this practice is that it's super accessible. Why Do We Mix Mantra Chanting and Silent Meditation.pdf makes it clear that the intention and feeling behind the chant matters more than perfect pronunciation.
So it's not about sounding a certain way. It's about connecting with the heart of the mantra.
Exactly. Find a rhythm and tone that feels natural for you. Chant it out loud, whisper it, even chant silently in your mind. It all works.
So there's no right or wrong way to do it.
As long as you're approaching it with sincerity and an open mind, you're doing it right. And don't be afraid to play around with it. Try different postures, different hand positions, maybe chant along with the recording. It's all about finding what works for you.
I love that. It's about finding what works for you. It's like trying to
Good.
find a new favorite song. Sometimes you stumble on it right way, and sometimes it takes a bit of, I don't know, exploration to find what really clicks.
Such a good point. And it's the same with sound and chanting. It's all about discovery,
Mm.
about figuring out what vibes with you, with your own unique energy.
Totally.
Hmm.
And like we were talking about earlier, we're really just scratching the surface when it comes to understanding sound, how it affects us, all that. Who knows what we'll find out in the next few years.
Right. We've come a long way from just, I don't know, thinking of sound as just a sensory thing. Now we're seeing how it can heal, transform us even. It's exciting.
It really is. This whole deep dive, it's honestly made me appreciate sound in a way I never thought I would.
I love to hear that. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to do a little sonic exploration of their own, see what they discover.
Absolutely. Whether it's adding a few minutes of chanting to their routine, trying out different mantras, or even just like really listening to the sounds around them with fresh ears, there's a whole world out there.
So well said. It's about opening ourselves up to the possibility that sound can be so much more than we realize. That it can be a source of well-being, inspiration, even a path to a more mindful life.
Beautifully put. So, to everyone listening, think of this as your official invitation to become sound explorers. Go out there, tune into that symphony of life, and see what you discover. Until next time, keep diving deep.